Like many, you may be wondering how Scottie Scheffler got arrested this morning and what's going to happen with the cases that have been filed against him. Scotty Scheffler is the #1 ranked golfer in the world. He was at the Valhalla Golf Course this morning, about to enter the PGA tournament. What we know from firsthand accounts is Scotty Scheffler was being asked to drive around an accident that had already occurred there on the golf club property. He believed he was being directed by security guards, whether those were security guards that worked for the golf club or independent security guards, and misunderstood the directions that he was being given. It turns out the directions were being given by a police officer who was unhappy with the fact that Scheffler was not following his directions. So the officer, according to first-party witness accounts, attached himself to the moving vehicle, and it takes about 10 more yards before the vehicle comes to a stop, at which time the officer is reaching into the vehicle. Scheffler eventually gets out, is pushed up against the car, and placed under arrest. This all happens in a matter of seconds. The officer claims that his uniform was damaged, and what we know is that Scheffler has been charged with multiple felony offenses, including assault on a police officer. Assault just means that a person was contacted and the person says that the contact caused them pain. There's no requirement of showing any bruises, physical, visible injuries, or anything you might expect with a typical assault charge. And that kind of highlights the problem with charges like these. You could essentially upset a police officer, and that police officer in the moment make a decision to place you under arrest. Because an officer is making an arrest at a low level of proof called probable cause, and because the system is not adversarial yet, in other words, there's not a defense attorney there speaking for you, it's generally not going to be in your best interest to make any statements. The process just continues with the officer placing him under arrest. So you hear that comment of the officer saying he's being placed under arrest and there's no way around that. There's some truth to that. Once the officer has made the decision, the arrest happens and then you have to deal with it in court. Now, we have seen some things that are positive. First, Scheffler was released in a timely manner. He was able to make it to today's tournament. Second, the statement that he issued is very smart. He has highlighted the fact that this was a misunderstanding and that he did not intentionally do anything to disobey a police officer or not stop when the officer asked him or not go around the vehicles the way that the officer wanted. What we don't know yet is whether this officer was even in uniform. If Scheffler is misinterpreting who is giving him guidance and what the guidance is, we have to understand this is 6 o'clock in the morning or sometime shortly after 6. It may be dark. We don't know what the lighting conditions are. And we don't know how the officers have identified themselves. Some of the vehicles that we see in the videos indicate these are not marked patrol cars. So depending on the jurisdiction, you might have a presumption that a person knew the person giving them orders was a police officer. For example, if they're in uniform with a badge, with something that says police, but there's still a lot of questions that remain to be asked. As far as where this case is going or these cases are going, it certainly seems like at the very least, this is being overcharged. I don't expect these cases to result in convictions. And the reality is there should be a pathway to getting these cases dismissed, because ultimately, if Scheffler did not understand that these were police officers, there's really a massive hole in the state's case about whether or not he intentionally or knowingly even disregarded a police officer. And then you have the issue of, was there actually an assault when the officer is the one who attaches himself, to use the witness's words, to the vehicle? That's typically not what you think of as an assault. And how much of this is the officer putting himself in harm's way versus Scheffler trying to do something that would cause someone else an injury?